Hi guys, this is my presentation on the FOMO effect, why teen brains crave connection even at a cost. During the summer between my ninth and 10th grade years of high school, I had missed a group outing to a concert by my favorite artist, Wave to Earth. Almost all of my close friends went, and even those popular kids from my school that I did not talk to, but apparently they were going to my favorite artist. Weeks before the Wave to Earth concert, I was begging my mom to let me go, but in the end, she said no, and I was very heartbroken. I would always listen to Wave to Earth when I was sad to cheer myself up. I would imagine how incredible it would have been to hear their music live. As the night of the concert came by, I stayed home with my mom and little sister. We decided to watch a newly released horror movie together. At first, I was genuinely having fun, jumping at the scary scenes and laughing at my sister's terrified reactions. But as the evening went on, I couldn't stop thinking about the Wave to Earth concert. I kept picturing my friends singing along to the songs I knew by heart, taking pictures and posting stories online. Each notification on my phone felt like a reminder I wasn't there. And as I scrolled through the pictures and stories from the event, I felt a strong wave of regret and isolation, even though I had chosen to stay home and spend time with my family. I felt left out, anxious, and almost jealous, even though I was with my family and I knew I should have been enjoying the moment. From this experience, I realized that my feelings of FOMO were tied to my desire to belong and share experiences with others. I appreciated that my mom and sister created a memory with me, even if it wasn't what I originally wanted. My mood shifted from sadness and envy to acceptance over time. That reaction illustrates the complex reality of the fear of missing out, FOMO, a phenomenon that reshapes the teenage brain through constant social media stimulation and underlying brain chemistry. According to the article, Fear of Missing Out and the Problematic Social Media Use, a serial mediation model of social comparison and self-esteem. The article explains that when people's basic emotional needs aren't fully met, they try to compensate in other ways. This connects to the need to belong theory stated in the article, which helps explain why people who strongly want to feel included are more likely to experience FOMO. The stronger someone's desire to fit in, the stronger their FOMO may be. And for many teenagers, FOMO extends beyond the screen, influencing how they think, feel, and respond to both online and in-person experiences. From elementary school to high school, I've always experienced this feeling. When I see other postings about activities I've never done and want to do, I sometimes feel a sense of jealousy or envy towards people I'm not even close to. In a way, these emotions form a kind of parasocial relationship where I become attached to the idealized versions of others' lives. Whatever it was, I never took action to try and figure out what I was feeling until now. I realized that when we see other people's lives, we often romanticize them, wanting to relive them ourselves and fulfill our desires with unreasonable fantasies. But when we don't, the fear of missing out comes in, FOMO. This realization raises important questions about how these emotions affect mental health and social behavior. Although this phenomenon and concept are quite new, with just enough information, that doesn't stop me and others from exploring it further. This includes reading articles from peer-reviewed journals, or conducting small surveys at school. For example, Serenity Austin reports that researchers at Baylor University conducted 2 studies consisting 565 college students from a large U.S. university to determine the effect of FOMO has on social media use and social connections to others, and psychological well-being. The article notes that the findings are based on a peer-review article, which found that FOMO is positively associated with social media intensity and has both direct negative and indirect positive effects on well-being through social media connection. This helps clarify how FOMO affects young people, where it originates, and how social media can influence adolescents' behavior through brain chemistry, particularly dopamine and cortisol. To investigate the frequency and effects of FOMO among adolescents, I conducted a survey with 120 students from Cleveland STEM High School. Their ages were from 14 to 18, and students filled them out during advisory periods during October. The survey was given anonymously through Google Forms, and its purpose was to explore students' experiences with FOMO, social media use, and whether social media had an impact or not, and the emotional impact of missing social activities. Participation was voluntary, and all responses were kept confidential. Depending on how you view the situation, social media presents both positive and negative influences. On the negative side, if you have constant exposures to other people's created lives, it can trigger FOMO, which leaves many teenagers to feel excluded, insecure, or even a lack of self-esteem. This psychological response often causes individuals to identify themselves left behind or disconnected from experiences that others seem to enjoy. However, these feelings can be managed through intentional digital habits. In an article, Jonathan advises to change your daily habits, turn off your notifications, and regain your attention. Then he goes on to recommend that people should observe a digital Sabbath to reduce dependence on technology and regain focus. If you intentionally control how others engage with social media, teenagers can transform it from a source of emotional strain into a tool for reflection and growth. This paper explores how the fear of missing out influences both the psychological and neurological aspects of the teenage brain. There are many ways FOMO can be experienced. One involves social media. and the connection people maintain with others, especially through social interactions. In the article, Causes and Consequences of Social Exclusion and Peer Rejection Among Children and Adolescents, Kelly writes, interpersonal exclusion involves rejection from individuals or the peer group because of individual differences such as attractiveness, social deficits, and temperamental characteristics, like being shy or withdrawn. This highlights that the external reasons for social or interpersonal exclusion can stem from the imbalance between the individual and the group. To further understand FOMO, it's useful to understand the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which suggests that belonging is a fundamental human need, but when this need is unmet, it may lead to feelings of isolation and exclusion, fueling FOMO. And I would also like to add that the social identity theory suggests that people's sense of who they are based on their group membership. And if there's any threat to that theory, it can result in FOMO as people feel compelled to affirm their place within the group. However, not all exclusions are negative, and it's very important to understand the difference between self-exclusion and being excluded by others. Some people might withdraw because a bully might be within the group, or maybe they anticipate rejection, but that's not always the case. Self-exclusion can also be a form of self-care, such as doing an intentional act of removing themselves from an environment that feels uncomfortable or unwelcoming. For instance, I chose to exclude myself from my middle school volleyball team, and it wasn't because of bullying or pressure, but it was due to my self-awareness, I would say. I admit that I was not the best at volleyball, and I still am not, and I wasn't very athletic as well, but some people aren't athletic, and that's okay. It was my second year of playing volleyball during 8th grade, and after my first year in 7th grade, I realized that I'm not very good at volleyball, and I don't have the mental capacity to receive critical feedback from my coach, and as a result of that, I took the step and excluded myself from the team and quit. But after I quit, some of my friends continued to stay on the volleyball team, and a very big wave of FOMO came crashing down. I would always wonder how my team did during the games against different schools. Mulvey continues to write that these negative outcomes, including internalizing symptoms such as depression and externalizing symptoms such as aggression, can result from a range of types of social exclusion and rejection, including both interpersonal and intergroup exclusion. This shows that self-exclusion may not be linked to bullying, but it can still cause mental and physiological harm to young people. Ultimately, FOMO often comes from the tension between belonging and separation. Many people who experience FOMO don't recognize it right away, but normally it begins with a subtle sense of unease or curiosity. Based on the article, Fear of Missing Out, What It Is, and How to Cope, the feeling of missing out can hold a lot of mixed emotions, leaving it hard to identify if you're either jealous or guilty for not being a part of a certain experience. Though many people may start to realize that they're experiencing FOMO when they notice that their mood is shifting negatively after seeing others' post or hearing about a social event that they didn't attend. Unfortunately, though, this awareness can sometimes come too late because emotional withdrawal has already set in. While FOMO is not an official diagnosis, it's widely known as the psychological experience linked to anxiety and low self-esteem. In this article, Sullivan writes that FOMO can affect anyone, but people who have a past or current mental health problem can have a higher risk of FOMO. And to add on, according to this article, Rocco states that when individuals have a low self-esteem, they may engage in excessive social media use to compensate for these deficiencies, highlighting that people who experience FOMO frequently report feeling less satisfied with their own lives and are more likely to engage in compulsive social media use. In today's world, social media's most popular platforms for communication can amplify the feeling of FOMO by constantly exposing people to the highlights of others' lives.